Hello, I'm Nuala McGovern. Well, European human rights judges have ruled that the extradition of 5 terrorist suspects to the United States is lawful. The 5, including the radical cleric Abu Hamza, had claimed that America's treatment of them would be inhuman or degrading, as they may be jailed for life without parole and in solitary confinement, and that such treatment would be in breach of European human rights. So have the judges made the right call? Well, you can give us a call if you're in the States at 011 44 20 70 83 72 72. Or maybe you're a fan of Skype. If so, call us at BBC_WHYS. Wherever you are in the world, you are very welcome to take part in the BBC's World Have Your Say.
If you don't want to make an international call, text country code 4477 86 20 60 80. And put "call me" in your message.
Mohammed Shakir, a campaigner for We Are Babar Ahmad, that is one of the terrorist suspects that we are speaking about today, and also Lord Carlisle, a member of the UK government and previously had been an independent reviewer of terror legislation for the UK government, joins us now. You're both very welcome to the programme. Mohammed, what was your reaction to this ruling?
It's definitely one of disappointment. We're a grassroots campaign. We had been working very hard over the past few months to highlight the plight of Babar and other people who are in a similar position, such as Gary McKinnon and Richard O'Dwyer. And it's just one of disappointment, essentially.
Well, Babar Ahmad, I should say, has been in detention without trial for 8 years. I think it's the longest known case of a British citizen in modern times. Lord Carlisle, how would you respond to Mohammed?
Well, I would say that the decision is entirely right and expected. One should not muddle these cases with Gary McKinnon's case. I strongly support Gary, but he is suffering from a health issue. And indeed, in this decision, the Court of Human Rights has adjourned its decision on Harun Rashid Aswat because he too is suffering from a serious health issue. This was always a hopeless case, and it's been too long in reaching the conclusion. They should have reached this conclusion at least a year ago.
I mean, this is essentially a case of sovereignty of British citizens going on trial here in the UK rather than cases being sent abroad, especially to the USA. And I mean, where is the line going to be drawn? Are we going to be sending any British citizen to any other country when and as required?
This has got nothing to do with sovereignty at all. If I, in London, commit a crime on the internet in the United States, subject to health issues like Gary McKinnon's, then I expect to be tried in the United States. The fact that I'm sitting at a keyboard in London makes absolutely no difference. And I can tell you that every day of the week in British courts and in courts in, say, New York, people are being tried for offences which physically may have had activity in the other country, but have their potential effect on, say, national security on the other side of the Atlantic. And we really should not see these cases going to the European Court of Human Rights. They should be decided by our domestic courts. We have a politically independent Supreme Court now, which is well able to deal with these issues.
I mean, you mentioned that the courts are well able to deal with legal issues. Why not in this case? Why couldn't the CPS review the evidence in this case, and why was the evidence sent abroad to the USA?
Because the allegation is that the offences alleged have been committed in the United States, and that in legal terms is absolutely right. Babar Ahmad has had every opportunity to challenge decisions which have been made, and no court has held that his case should be tried in the United Kingdom. That's just plain wrong, I'm afraid. And also, you complained about Babar Ahmad being in custody for the last 8 years, which is, of course, a long time. But a lot of people are acquitted of criminal offences in the United States. They have a fair trial system, which is acknowledged the world over. If he had wanted to go and be tried, and, as he says, prove his innocence, he could have voluntarily gone to a trial in the United States years ago. He has only himself to blame for being in custody for so long.
I mean, what are your thoughts on supermax prisons in the United States? How, from my understanding of the way people are treated there, they're designed to hamper sensory faculties. Is that the correct? I mean, regardless of the European Court of Human Rights' verdict today, what are your views on the way people are treated there?
Well, first, I'm content with the European Court of Human Rights verdict. Secondly, anyone who commits a crime in the United States should have their eyes open as to what the United States penal system consists of. Thirdly, I'm not particularly happy about certain aspects of the American prison system, just as I'm not particularly happy about certain aspects of the British penal system. But that is the system of a sovereign state. We can't have the European Court of Human Rights or British courts interfering with the American sentencing system any more than we would be willing to have the American courts interfering with our sentencing system. It's outrageous to suggest the contrary.
I'm pleased to see you mentioned sovereignty in that last comment. Surely a British citizen should be tried in a British court system, British legal system.
No, of course not.
No,
Of
I mean,
course
no.
not. You're talking nonsense.
No,
if a British citizen commits an offence in another country, or it's alleged that they've committed an offence in another country, they stand trial in that country. It happens all the time. And I'm afraid no amount of special pleading on behalf of Babar Ahmad is going to change the legal situation.
Well,
why do you want to change it?
Go ahead, Mohammed.
It's essentially, he's never. I mean, he's been incarcerated for 8 years.
By his choice.
Well, no, you may say that that's your point of view.
Well, it's true.
But why has he never been charged by the British legal system? I mean.
Well, you keep asking the same question,
but
why should he not be charged by the Americans with an offence committed in America? As we would expect to charge someone here.
I'll disagree with you. I believe that the offence was committed here in the UK.
Well, then you don't understand the law of jurisdictions, I'm afraid.
Well, considering the evidence, from my understanding, all the evidence, majority of the evidence hasn't actually been seen by the CPS.
Well, why should it be? You wouldn't expect the CPS to... If somebody commits a murder in Vienna and they happen to be a British citizen in the United Kingdom, you do not expect the CPS to examine the evidence, because international law does not work in that way. Where we have civilised sovereign states, it is right that people who are alleged to have committed offences in those states should be tried where the offence was committed. And let's face it, in Babar Ahmad's case, the allegation is that he committed offences on the internet in the United States, albeit the buttons were pressed in London. That makes no difference.
But even then, I do believe the extradition treaty between the UK and the United States is unfair and requires reform. Would you agree with me on that?
Well, we had a report by Lord Justice Scott Baker recently who came to the contrary conclusion. He's one of England and Wales's most senior and highly respected judges. The government has agreed to re-examine Lord Justice Scott Baker's report. But no, I do not agree with that. My view is that maybe some tidying up needs to be done so that we understand our jurisdictions a little better. But actually the law is quite fair in that it means that a British citizen who commits an offence in the United States can be tried there, and vice versa.
Are you telling me you disagree with 35 MPs who debated this in the House of Commons late last year in regards to that a reform and a review is required? I mean, surely there should be a fairer system.
Well, the short answer to your question is yes, I was an MP for 14 years, and 35 MPs, I can tell you, is about 5 to 7% of the members of the House of Commons, and I do disagree with them. I would be very happy for the mutual extradition arrangements to be re-examined, despite Lord Justice Scott Baker's favourable report, but it would make absolutely no difference to any of the cases that have been tried today, that have been decided today.
Just a couple of comments coming in for you, Lord Carlisle, and I know you need to go in a moment. Hannah Jade says it's pathetic that Abu Hamza and crew case has taken 8 years without trial. Surely that's what we should all be worried about. Michael Feltham in the UK Telegraph commenting, what an utter charade. How long has this taken? How much has it cost the British taxpayer?
Well, that is, I agree with you. I'm going to have to go to another channel, I'm afraid, but that is shocking. It's cost the British taxpayer a great deal of money, not least because the European Court of Human Rights has been sitting on this case for 22 months when the result was actually bound to be as it has turned out today.
Do you think they'll actually be extradited very soon?
Yes.
Like, you mean in a matter of days or weeks?
Not in a matter of days. I think they'll be extradited after the expiry of 3 months. There is a theoretical right of appeal to the Grand Chamber of the European Court of Human Rights, but I'd be amazed if they obtain permission.
That's what I seem to read. I want to thank Lord Carlisle, a member of the UK government and previously has been an independent reviewer of terror legislation for the UK government. Thank you very much. And we'll move on. We have Amna Ahmed joining us now. That name may be familiar to some of you. She is from the family of Babar Ahmed, who've been speaking about here. If you're just joining us, you are listening to World Have Your Say, and we are talking with this decision made by the European Court that they are going to extradite 5 terror suspects from the UK to the US. Mohammed is here. He's been chatting with Lord Carlisle, and Amna Ahmed joins us on the phone. Welcome to the programme, Amna. Tell us your reaction to the ruling today.
We are very disappointed as a family with the ruling, but this has raised our sense of urgency in calling for a public inquiry to the British government with what has gone wrong with Barbara's case. When Babar was originally arrested in December 2003, it was under an operation called Operation Quarrier. The Metropolitan Police collected the evidence from his house, from his work, and they were legally bound to give that evidence to the Crown Prosecution Service, but they didn't. They bypassed the Crown Prosecution Service and sent it to America. So then the Crown Prosecution Service had been always telling us that they thought there was insufficient evidence to charge Babar, but in essence they were never actually given all of the evidence. So we believe there's been an abusive process. The police should have given all of the evidence to the prosecuting authorities in the United Kingdom so that Babar could have been prosecuted and put on trial in this country and he wouldn't be languishing in prison for 8 years.
Well, Amna, you may have heard a little of Lord Carlisle there citing the reasons that he's seen it as the European Court of Human Rights as they made their decision, saying the alleged crime was allegedly committed in the US. It's a website, even if you're in London, that then they were Babar Ahmad, and the other 4 terror suspects would be extradited to the US. Meet Anish, who is British, in London. Anish, welcome to the programme. What would you like to say to Amna about this ruling?
First of all, I would like to say that it is really, really regrettable from the British government's point of view, or the British legal system's point of view, that he has been incarcerated for such a long period of time without being presented with the evidence against him or even being charged. That is regrettable. But I would say that regardless of whether the crime was committed in the UK or elsewhere, he must face trial one way or another.
Absolutely.
And I'm kind of taking the more bigger picture here, that regardless of where the crime took place, he has to face, some form of judicial process or due process.
We completely agree that he should face trial, but I disagree with your point that regardless of where the crime is said to have taken place, and no, that is what should completely be regarded. We should totally regard where has the allegations, where is the crime said to have taken place. Going back to your point about Lord Carlisle, I mean, it's unfortunate that he's had to go, but I would have liked to have asked him how much he actually knows about Barbara's case, because he speaks so confidently about everything is said to have occurred in the United States. But if you look at the allegations, you read the U.S. indictment, the majority of the offences are said to have occurred in Britain. The evidence came from...
Well, I think what we're talking about is a website, whether those actual websites are registered to a US address or whether they're registered to a UK address. But I can't get Lord Carlisle to respond to you, I'm afraid. But I understand the point that you're putting out. But let me read some comments that are coming in. And we're also going to be joined by Alec in London, I see, is joining us by phone as well. Maisie in Scotland tweets, "I'm so chuffed that Abu Hamza and his mates are off to face US justice. Sorted." A.H. Dahani says, "Goodbye, Abu Hamza. A person like you is a disgrace to Muslims and makes a peaceful religion a mockery. You are just pure evil." Lee Ingram tweeting, "Turn up for the books. Abu Hamza extradition is going ahead. I didn't see that coming." And he uses the hashtag special relationship. Welcome to the programme, Alec. You've been hearing a little of the conversation. What would you like to pick up on?
It seems to me that the one thing that's sort of the elephant in the room is the fact that I think there's an implicit understanding that the American justice system is, and the American prison system is in some way going to be harsher or less fair or sort of, engage in less due process than the British one. And I actually think one of the best things about today's ruling is the European Court of Human Rights, which I would submit is probably, the best human rights court possibly convened in the history of the world, has sat down for a very long time and made a clear decision that says, actually, no, we are abiding with, Americans are abiding with human rights norms. They do have, a really superb system of justice, and he's going to face, the full weight of the law with all the procedural protections thereof in the trial that he has there. So, I think it's a good day for the U.S. justice system to get that kind of endorsement from the European Court of Human Rights.
Amna, what would you respond?
My case goes back to Babar's again, which is that I have bigger questions for the British authorities than the American ones. I agree with extradition as a principle. If somebody commits a crime in a country and then flees that country, they're a fugitive. They should be brought back to face trial in that country. But in Babar's case, he's not a fugitive. And only, in the indictment it states, only a small portion of the servers were temporarily based in the United States. The majority of the servers were based elsewhere. So so this argument of the majority of the evidence is in the United Kingdom, in the United States, or the servers were in the United States, is a weak argument, because if anyone analyzes the indictment, they can see that only a small portion of the servers for a temporary period of time were in the United States.
Well, why do we care? Honestly, why do we care about this when essentially, it seems to be a wash either way, right? Either he gets tried in Britain or he gets tried in America for basically the same crime. This is all hinging on arcane principles.
But why should he leave his homeland, his family, to face trial for crimes? He can easily face trial in the United Kingdom. There was a similar case last year.
He's already locked up, isn't he?
In 2010, there was a case of Shepherd and Whitley, which are two neo-Nazis who were accused of running websites whose servers were in the United States. And the British courts, in fact, Sir Scott Baker ruled that trial should occur in the United Kingdom. Even though the servers were based in the United States, there was a ruling in the courts here that they should be put on trial in the United Kingdom.
Right. But in this particular case, I don't see how your argument follows. He's in prison either way, right? This is not like he's being deprived of his family. He's been deprived of his family already. It's just a case of which cell block does he exist in? I take your point that treaties...
That seems like a very cold...
Sure.
That's a very cold-hearted statement. There is a huge difference, anyone who knows their geography, between the United Kingdom and the United States. There's a whole ocean between us. It's not as easy to go and visit somebody in the United States. If he's plucked away from the United Kingdom and banged up in a cell where there's no pressure on anyone to put him on trial over there, there's a huge difference there. It's quite amazing to hear a fellow human being even coming out with things like that.
But I don't feel like the location of his incarceration should really be a factor in where he's tried.
Would you like to be snatched away from your friends and family and extradited to the other side of the world and kept in solitary confinement, awaiting trial indefinitely?
Of course not. But if it's right that I should stand trial in another country, then of course I'd have to accept that.
Well, obviously that shows your lack of knowledge about the indictment. You haven't read it properly. The bulk of the evidence is not based in the United States.
But Amna, let me hop in there, because I know you have made that point. Is it purely the geographical location, and we are talking here about, some of them call it the Alcatraz of the Rockies, is one nickname I saw for this particular Supermax prison. Is it that, or is it, as was claimed within the European Court for Human Rights, that it's the conditions there, that they would be inhuman or degrading if they were in solitary confinement?
We do have concerns about the conditions in the United States. And another point I'd like to make is that even the pre-trial conditions in the United States are horrific. Chris Tappan, he has been accused of crimes which is totally unrelated to this kinds of crimes that Babar has been accused of. He's being held, he's an elderly man, in solitary confinement with the bright lights on for 23 hours a day. Anybody with a brain cell would know that it's completely inhumane, especially for a retired old man, when he was on bail here right up until he got onto the plane.
There has been quite a bit of tweets about that, Amna, today. Well, meet Colin, who is in the UK. Colin, welcome to the programme. We've been chatting passionately here about the extradition of 5 terror suspects from the UK to the US. What would you like to say?
Well, basically, I'd just like to add a few comments about it. I'm listening intently, and although the complexities of the things in and out, to be honest, I'd be quite celebrating if they were being removed tonight, because for the last 8 years, this person's been in a British jail claiming, taxpayers' money, keeping him there, and it's been unbelievable. You read these stories about Abu Hamza causing all this hatred, and it's about time it stopped. The American justice system, is a lot firmer than ours, and they certainly won't be getting a free meal ticket when they go over there.
I mean, I'd first of all like to make a differentiation between Abu Hamza and Babar Ahmad. They're two totally separate cases, two totally separate people. Essentially, I mean, we're a grassroots campaign, and our view is definitely that the extradition treaty between the UK and US needs to be reviewed and most definitely overhauled, because it's unfair between there's a lot of discrepancy and unfairness between the US and the UK, and we strongly believe that, and we'll be looking to push that through.
Colin?
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, but at the end of the day, the crimes that he committed, being even pressing the keyboard in the UK, were guided and pointed towards the US. The US feels strongly enough to look for his extradition and to charge him in that country, and that's where he committed his crimes. So maybe that's where his punishment should be served and be dealt with.
What about Gary McKinnon then? Do you think Gary McKinnon should be extradited? Because it's similar. You said sitting in England on a keyboard. Should he be sent to the United States?
Well, yes. Well, in the case of Gary McKinnon, his target was specifically the US government and their government website. So, it's right, because that was the nature of his crime, was to directly, if you like, attack American servers and American computer systems. So it is right in that case, I would say. But Amna, I would just like to ask you: is your biggest fear that he would not face a fair trial, or the level of justice would not be the same if he were to stand trial in America versus here? Is that your biggest fear?
We do have a fear that if he's put on trial in America, he wouldn't he wouldn't be treated fairly. But our bigger concern is that we feel let down by our government. This is a matter of public concern. There needs to be a public inquiry. Why are we outsourcing our cases to the United States? Why are we subcontracting the United States to take care of cases we can quite competently manage?
As we said, his abuse was directed towards the US. His crime was against US citizens.
No, it wasn't actually.
So therefore,
that's not what the indictment says.
I'm going to have to hop in there, but Amna, I want to thank you so much for coming on the programme. Same goes for Alec, Anish, Colin, who you just heard, and Mohammed, who came into the studio, and Lord Carlisle, of course, we spoke to earlier. Lots of you have been getting in touch. Apple Blossom B tweets, "This stinks. Babarahmad, try him here. How can somebody be locked up without trial or evidence? He's a British citizen."